Project Daytona has been a 9-month intelligence-driven investigation into criminals operating at a wholesale level, focusing acutely on those who provide drug dealers with their drugs. They are key facilitators that supply illicit goods to organized crime and drug distribution networks within our communities. They are the ones who have persisted after we've targeted and dismantled other criminal operations and street gangs. This project exemplifies the ability of our investigators to work simultaneously across multiple groups and jurisdictions, strategically targeting and removing significant criminal elements from their respective areas of impact. Project Daytona has not been a typical organized crime investigation where we specifically target one crime cell or enterprise. Our objective has been to destabilize entire markets by targeting the foundation. Although these targets may not fall within the structure of previously known or readily identifiable criminal groups, they contributed to drug trafficking operations at a high level. The accused in this project aren't connected to one another. What do they have in common? The police investigating them, drug trafficking, greed, and a complete and utter disregard for public safety. Whether in a large area such as the GTA or a small community like Perth, the impact of this investigation can't be measured by the quantity of drugs seized alone. We've maximized the results of this investigation by targeting those who had the most negative influence through their criminal activities. Last week, the OPP executed 8 warrants in Ontario and Quebec. We arrested 10 individuals and have issued an arrest warrant for the remaining accused. As you can see from the items on display, Project Daytona has led to the seizure of significant quantities of drugs, including cocaine, methamphetamine, MDMA, and cannabis. Project Daytona has destabilized these drug trafficking networks, and there will be a radiating effect experienced by the criminals who relied on these key facilitators. Detective Inspector Peter Donnelly will now provide more specific results of the investigation.
This has been a complex operation with many moving parts. Project Daytona has been an intelligence-driven investigation. We utilized information from multiple sources in order to prioritize and identify the targets, which you see here today on the project map, as the individuals who have had the most negative influence within their respective communities. Their involvement in drug trafficking was significant and impactful. And it goes without saying that removing these individuals from our communities is a top priority for the law enforcement in our province and in our country. The fact that these individuals had no connection to one another is what allowed our team to seamlessly continue this investigation successfully. In April of last year, we began Project Daytona with the objective to go after the criminals who are operating in drug trafficking at a wholesale level, to cut off the supply at the top, to prevent those drugs from reaching the hands of street-level dealers, including street gangs and other organized crime groups. We wanted to cripple the very foundation of the networks that we identified. We wanted to eliminate the source. On January the 22nd, we executed 2 search warrants in Stony Creek and Burlington with the assistance of our Tactics and Rescue Unit, Emergency Response Team, and our organized crime teams. On January 23rd, we executed an additional 6 search warrants in Ottawa, Perth, Kingston, Smith Falls, and 1 in Gatineau. As outlined on the project map you see here today, the following people have been charged. From the Hamilton Greater Toronto area, Dominic Gravel and Robert Verbanek were both arrested and charged. From Gatineau, Quebec, Abdallah Abdul Razak was arrested and charged. From Ottawa and the surrounding area, Viken Vic Dukmajian was arrested and charged. Brett Hall and Mark Miller have been arrested and charged. And from Smith Falls, Jamie Crowder was arrested and charged. Clarence Mulrooney, Josh Belfiore have also been arrested and charged. Matt Purcell has been charged, and there's currently a warrant for his arrest. From Perth, Trevor Hands was arrested and charged. From Kingston, Stephen Krause was arrested and charged. A total of 12 people have been charged with the following: 34 offenses under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, including trafficking cocaine, methamphetamine, and ecstasy. 39 offenses under the Criminal Code of Canada, including possession of property obtained by crime, and 8 offenses under the Cannabis Act, including the sale of cannabis. What you see on the evidence table is a sample of the drug seizures, but the quantities we've seized are not represented in their entirety. The totality of the quantities seized throughout this investigation is quite substantial. There's been 8.5 kilograms of cocaine, 9 kilograms of methamphetamine, 4 kilograms of MDMA, ecstasy, more than 100 pounds of cannabis, 8.5 kilograms of cannabis concentrate, and around $30,000 Canadian currency. The street value and distribution potential of these quantities is alarming. 8.5 kilograms of cocaine could easily be doubled or tripled for street-level drug sales. We have prevented a potential of 20 plus kilos of street-level cocaine from being trafficked in our communities. Cannabis was seized in high quantities as well. This is evidence that even though cannabis is now legal, the sale and distribution of illicit cannabis remains lucrative for organized crime groups. In addition to the cocaine and cannabis, we've taken 9 kilograms of methamphetamine off our streets, a drug that is well known to cause increase in violent acts and property crimes throughout our neighborhoods. That's what this is about, our communities, our neighborhoods, and making them safer. We want to take this opportunity to remind the public that they have a role to play in helping us. If you don't want to call the police directly, you can contact Crime Stoppers, provide anonymous information which can assist us in investigations like this. I want to stress to you today, and to anyone who may be listening to this announcement, that we have a very talented, dedicated, and intelligent team of investigators who strive for nothing more than to keep our communities safe. We would like for all those involved in organized crime and drug trafficking to know that if you're bringing these commodities into our communities, we will investigate, we will find you, and we will prosecute you. You are not welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector. Okay, we'll open up the floor to questions. We don't forget we will offer one-on-one interviews afterwards. So questions? Yes, Kimberly.
You mentioned high-level organized crime groups. Are you able to specify a little bit more about which high-level organized crime groups?
The traditional, I guess they'd be described as traditional organized crime groups and feeder groups for the street-level gangs that you would see here. When I say traditional organized crime, that could mean ethnic-based crime or just traditional organized groups.
So are there any, would this be gangs or something organized? Like, are there any sort of groups that we would kind of know traditionally in the media?
So I think the intent of this investigation, why it's atypical, is that these are the individuals who would have provided drugs to street gangs, outlaw motorcycle gangs, as well as organized crime groups in all the communities. That's the interesting thing about this particular investigation, how intelligence-driven it is even though we target, this isn't about people who suffer from problematic substance abuse, it's not about targeting street-level drug dealers, it's not about targeting even identifiable organized crime enterprises or groups within the communities. This is about targeting individuals who are actually giving them the drugs, and they deal with multiple groups across the board. So our investigation in this particular case is targeting that high-level facilitator, and that is a different concept because everyone's looking for the name or the patch color or the street gang name. It would be everyone in the communities would have all probably received their drugs and illicit commodities from these individuals.
I guess what I'm wondering is when you say outlaw motorcycle gangs, are we talking about Hells Angels or other groups that we would be aware of?
That's when we can't give you a specific name. It's the wholesaler in a community that's providing to basically all those groups. And that's who we targeted. So we would have had a project recently, like Project Skylark, where we'd have taken that one down and done a press conference with that one, where we specifically spoke to certain Hells Angels individuals or Red Devils, and as you remove them from the communities, these are the people that remain standing. They're the key facilitators that remain engaged in the drug trafficking network and fill that void. So regardless of the group, whether it's the Hells Angels today or the Outlaws tomorrow or the Galloway Boys from Toronto, these are the individuals who provide those drugs to those groups in these communities. So it'd be unfair to name anyone in particular. It's at wholesale level. These are wholesale level traffickers.
So essentially they're almost, they're higher than those groups and they would provide to those groups.
Exactly. Exactly. These are the key facilitators, the ones that tend to remain standing even when we do target the lower level drug dealers in any community.
You mentioned that cannabis remains a lucrative trade. One of the stated goals of legalization was to put a dent in organized crime. Have you noticed on the investigative level or what you're seizing, have the quantities gone down? Have they remained the same? What effect has there been in the last couple of years with legalization on that?
Well, as you can see from the pile of illicit cannabis sitting beside the table there, it's still a significant factor in our investigations. We still see it being moved continually by illegal groups, and they only facilitate the movement of that cannabis to make money. They're operating in the gray area of that between legality and illegality to be able to launder money, move product in a way that people sometimes don't notice. But that's an awful lot of cannabis sitting there, and that's worth a lot of money.
Quantities pre-legalization to now, are you seeing a reduction in quantities at all of what you're seizing?
No,
Were these individuals, were they manufacturing these drugs? Where's this drug, where do they originate from?
the quality of the drugs that you're seeing here, particularly the cocaine and the methamphetamine, is like we've never really seen before, and I think it's because we're operating on such a high level. The cocaine is essentially as pure as it can get, and I suspect that it came straight from its origination source, whether that's Colombia or Mexico. It's high in the 90% purity rate. So we don't see any manufacturing signs being done here. We expect that most of it has been imported.
Is there a dollar number on each batch of drugs? Like for the ecstasy, for the cocaine?
And it's very difficult, again, to come up with a street level value for this drug, because when you look at a kilogram of cocaine, for example, that is 98% pure cocaine, well, that's not what goes to the street. So this cocaine would be sold to street level gangs, different dealers. They would break it down 2, possibly 3 times, and then sell it at the gram level on the street. So we do have some numbers for you, and my subject matter experts in the back can answer your questions about specific values later, but in the millions.
Okay, and so that cocaine over there would be pure, or something that they got right from the supplier from outside of
Yes.
of Canada,
Yes,
and then he would give it to his soldiers or men or whatever, and they would break it down. They would sell it at street level.
yes, it could be sold 3 or 4 times before it actually reaches the street, and broken down at each phase of that transfer. So it comes pure at 98%, sold to the first person, stepped on to 75%, sold to the next person, stepped down to 50%, sold to the street level where it's again stepped on and sold on the street. It's not uncommon on the street to see cocaine that's about 20%.
Okay, and this is a question maybe you can't answer, but for like the cocaine, for example, any idea where that came from? Like what country?
We certainly are investigating, and sometimes if you see photos that we put on the portal, and you can see from the cocaine there, some of it has stamping or marks that identify it. It becomes known by its stamp and for its quality. So we're obviously in the process of working with the DEA and other agencies to try and track down exactly where it came from.
You mentioned that none of the accused knew each other and that this actually helped to complete the investigation seamlessly, I think is the word that you used. Is that very rare for an investigation of this nature?
I'd say yes, it is. Normally we focus on a crime group and sometimes we start at the bottom, and if we're lucky, we can take a step up or 2 steps up to be able to identify higher people in the hierarchy. In this circumstance, we were able to, using intelligence, identify the top people from the very start and focus our efforts completely on their activities. So when I discuss Crime Stoppers in my remarks, it's really important that we gather that intelligence from people who are willing to call in and give us the information that can point these people out. You'll notice in your packages that some of these people had no previous criminal records. So they're not people that have ever been looked at by the police before. And now that we discover they're operating, selling cocaine and methamphetamine at the kilogram level, it's very substantial.
Just wondering how that dynamic has shifted in the last couple of years. Just the last few operations that we've seen come before the courts, Project Step, Project Wildwood, those were all closely knit. Family members were involved. Police agents were used. People that were sort of turned within the organization to give information to police. With something like this, it seems more fragmented and fractured across the province, and doesn't have that sort of cohesive communication. That I would assume that makes it more challenging to make those, like you say, to elevate the investigation of those steps.
Yes, it is challenging, but we've set it for a goal to ourselves to focus higher and be strategic about our approach, and that's exactly what we've done here. Instead of operating at the low level and making more consistent small busts, with this project we really reached for the stars and achieved it.